Squid Game conquered the world with its deadly games and social criticism. But behind the success, there exists a series of controversies that Netflix tried to hide at any cost. From questionable casting choices to scandals hushed up behind the scenes, today you're going to learn the shocking truth that was left out of the episodes. And that could completely change how you see the series. The weight of dedication in Squid Game often falls on the cast. Clear evidence of this was the case of Heo Sung-tae, the actor behind the imposing Jang Deok-soo. Right after the success of the first season, he revealed something shocking. He lost an incredible 73 kilos during the pandemic, and then, to return to the role, he needed to gain back about 15 to 17 kilos in just a month and a half. The rapid transformation came at a very high price. Heo described severe pain. "My calf muscles tore and my knees hurt. My health was completely exhausted." Gaining weight was 3 times harder than losing weight, according to him. To contextualize, in fiction, Deok-soo's frightening body was essential to convey terror and greed, but in Heo's words, reality was much harsher. The extreme method policy to achieve the ideal image exposed the actor to risk. And this echoes an uncomfortable question. How far does Netflix push its actors to maintain the aggressive look of the characters? Sung-tae lost 10 kilos right after filming, but this didn't erase the risks he faced. Structural damage to muscles and knee problems don't disappear easily. He also said that if they offered him another role that required significant weight gain, today he would refuse, and justified. Gaining weight is 3 times harder than losing. This physical sacrifice, practically authentic bodily torture, was never shown in the extras nor mentioned in Netflix's glossaries. It was completely hushed up, perhaps to not tarnish the image of glorious sacrifice that the brand tries to maintain. And it wasn't just him. Other behind-the-scenes stories thicken this disturbing pattern. For example, creator Hwang Dong-hyuk came to confess that he even lost teeth during the production of the first season. A super intense action scene with violent fall was responsible for this trauma. But, once again, this type of information never gained prominence in official publicity. It's as if Netflix wanted to hide these pieces. The actor's body, the director's trauma. What matters is the story that guarantees numbers and emotion, not the human price behind it. When Netflix announced the second season of Squid Game, one of the names that drew the most attention was T.O.P., former member of the group Big Bang. His presence in the cast generated immediate shock and curiosity. After all, we're talking about an artist involved in one of the biggest scandals in the K-pop industry. In 2017, T.O.P. was convicted for marijuana use, something that in South Korea is seen as a serious crime, especially for celebrities. He stayed away from the stages for years, practically exiled from the public scene. Then, out of nowhere, he simply reappeared in the most watched series in Netflix history. The truth is that T.O.P. came to appear in teasers, posters, and initial announcements from the platform. He was introduced as one of the new players in the fictional competition, and even without details about his character, his name generated immediate buzz. But something started to seem strange. Shortly after, he completely disappeared from promotional campaigns. The following trailers no longer showed his face. The series' official social networks began to ignore his existence, and the press stopped mentioning him in articles that talked about the cast. There was no formal announcement from Netflix about T.O.P.'s removal. No note, no clarification, no official cast change. What there was silence. A calculated silence. A silence that many interpreted as a clear attempt by the platform to avoid bigger controversies. After all, the series' image is built on social criticism and distorted morality. Having an artist involved with drugs in the cast could become a snowball, especially in a conservative market like the Korean one. The internet, of course, didn't let it pass. More attentive fans began to question, where's T.O.P.? Why did they make him disappear from the promos? Are they going to pretend he was never there? Some groups even accused Netflix of hypocrisy. They used his name in the announcement to generate buzz and then silently discarded him. For others, it was just an attempt by the company to avoid unnecessary crises at a delicate moment. Either way, the message was clear. If something bothers Squid Game's public image, Netflix simply erases it, pretends it didn't exist, rewrites the narrative behind the scenes. And this pattern of hiding controversies instead of facing them is exactly what begins to repeat in other parts of this story. T.O.P.'s exclusion from the campaigns wasn't an accident, it was a choice. And if T.O.P.'s silent cut already seemed serious, what came after completely exposed what Netflix tries to avoid at any cost, any subject that could provoke real debate. The second controversial point, and perhaps the noisiest, was the choice of Park Sung-hoon to play Hyun-ju, a trans woman in the new season of Squid Game. On the surface, it could even seem like a bold decision. After all, addressing gender diversity in a Korean series with global reach would be an important step. But the problem came precisely from how this was done, and mainly from who was chosen for this role. Park Sung-hoon is a cisgender actor, known for intense and expressive roles. The public doesn't question his talent. What caused outrage was the production's decision to cast a cis man to play a trans character, while Korean trans actresses remain invisible in the market. The choice was quickly labeled as trans fake, a term used to describe this type of representation that many consider offensive, outdated, and exclusionary. The criticism exploded on social networks. Hashtags emerged. International outlets like Rolling Stone published articles denouncing the case as another example of trans erasure. Activist groups reinforced that, beyond acting, the central point is representation. How can we expect society to respect trans people if even in trans roles, who appears are cis actors? The series director, Hwang Dong-hyuk, tried to explain. He stated that it was almost impossible to find a visible and prepared trans actress in Korea, which ignited the debate even more. For many, this justification sounded like a lazy excuse. After all, if Squid Game managed to cast international heavyweight names, why didn't it search outside the traditional bubble? Why didn't it use its platform to give visibility to those who really need to be seen? The reaction was so intense that once again, Netflix adopted the tactic we already know. It remained silent. No official statement, no clarifying interview, no retraction. Park Sung-hoon also didn't speak directly, and so far his character doesn't even appear prominently in the trailers. Coincidence? Or another attempt to prevent the scandal from gaining even more momentum? While the series tries to pass the image of a modern and conscious production, the decisions behind the cameras show the opposite, and each new episode like this only reinforces the feeling that Squid Game isn't prepared to deal with the responsibility it created for itself. A global production with gigantic cultural impact that seems incapable of dealing with its own image, or with the diversity it pretends to represent. And if Netflix already showed difficulty in dealing with fiction, things get even more serious when the problem leaves the script and becomes reality, literally. Because while the second season of Squid Game was awaited with anxiety, the platform decided to transform the series' concept into a real reality show. Thus was born Squid Game, The Challenge, a competition inspired by the drama, with hundreds of participants facing physical and psychological tests for a millionaire prize. The idea seemed bold and promising, but it only took a few episodes for the project's image to begin crumbling. Long before even the premiere, accusations began to pop up in the international press. Participants were being mistreated during filming, facing hypothermia, nerve injuries, and even situations that bordered on psychological abuse. According to reports from Rolling Stone, The Sun, and Variety, some players were exposed to intense cold for more than 7 hours during the filming of the first game, the famous red light, green light, being forced to remain motionless on the frozen floor of a hangar in the United Kingdom. The result? Ambulances were called, and several participants had to be removed from the competition with serious symptoms, including loss of sensation in lower limbs. Netflix, of course, denied everything at first, said they were exaggerations, that no one had been seriously injured. But it didn't take long for the players themselves to start giving interviews telling their versions. One of them even said he felt like an extra in torture disguised as a program. Another stated that the production chose who would win, favoring participants with more audience appeal, which raised suspicions that everything was manipulated and that the game was just a staging to seem spontaneous. Things got even worse when they began to compare the reality show with the criticism that the original series makes, the exploitation of human suffering in the name of entertainment. It was as if Netflix had completely ignored Squid Game's central message and had ironically reproduced exactly what the story denounced, only this time with real people. And the most impressive thing? Even with the criticism, the reality show was renewed. The second season of Squid Game, The Challenge, is already in production. The lesson wasn't learned. The public questions, denounces, demands, and Netflix responds with more silence or with more seasons. If in the series the violence was fictional, in the reality show it was felt on the skin, literally. And with each new episode of this type, what before was just a controversy now already seems like a pattern where pain, exclusion, and scandal are worth less than audience. We can't deny Squid Game became a global phenomenon, but behind the success, what exists is silence, sacrifice, and controversy. Netflix preferred to hide all of this, but now you know. And so, after everything you've seen, can you still watch this series the same way? Comment here what shocked you most, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel for more truths that no one has the courage to tell.